the thing I did right is cement work. We have cement company into the shed for all the to roll stuff in and out, and then cement in front of the garbage scows. Right. I have to get it. To risk it, I'm okay.
I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
It's in the other room.
I'll get it.
I was hoping Council Petropoulos was wearing one.
Afraid not today. Had the old identity.
Slight technical difficulty.
Organization is flagging. Would you say that, Mayor? No.
We got one on order from each room.
Peter's on.
Woo! Peter, thank you very much. Peter's going to sing the national anthem. Oh, Canada. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, if you can please call the roll.
I'm here.
Councilor Grimaldi. Councilor Gilat.
Here.
Councilor Petropoulos.
Here.
Great shot at me.
Councilor Morocco.
Here.
Councilor Brennan.
Here.
Councilor Whitfield. Mayor Valentino.
Here. Okay, thank you. We have an amendment to the agenda this evening. The first amendment is, well, we're going to do them both together. We're going to have an executive session to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities or sale of exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof, and a resolution with property auction bid acceptance 2024. So I'm going to make a motion to amend the agenda, and I'll need a second. Second by Councilor Petropoulos. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll consider the agenda amended. And first, next is our presentation on the Ontario County Housing Study. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. We're really pleased to be here. I'm Tom Barker, and this is Ryan Davis. And I guess just to start off, we're not here to advocate any particular position. Obviously, housing is a concern in the provision of housing. We heard a lot of anecdotal stories across the entire county. So we were able to put together and hire a firm to see what the facts were. So we're here tonight to really talk about the facts and help you guys really understand the information that's out there and decide for yourselves where and what's appropriate, where you want to go with it, what's appropriate for the city of Geneva. So we're really pleased to be here and have this opportunity. Anything you want to add?
I have nothing to add, Tom.
So we'll go. So we'll see if I can do this from here.
And Tom, just a question, because before we get going, we attended one of the breakout meetings. It was at FLCC, and I believe it was last fall. My memory's not the sharpest. Maybe it was.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere in the fall last year. Between then and now, because I remember a lot of that material, and what we're going to be looking at tonight, have things changed any?
We've put together a lot of the recommendations, and I guess the only other thing that has happened is we've gone back to our committees and our board of supervisors, and they have formed an ad hoc housing committee, which is co-chaired by Supervisor John Cowley from the town of Naples, and we're working through that again to look at this stuff and see what things the county can implement and provide assistance to municipalities when they make decisions they want to go down a certain road.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do have something to add now.
Now you have something to add.
So, and then I'll weave in first slide stuff while we do that. So what has changed? A lot of what Tom has said. The committees of the Board of Supervisors helped us put together the ad hoc committee, which he already explained. Some of the data has obviously changed, especially when you're talking about availability and affordability. Houses have gone up in price, and there's less of them. That's changed since August of last year. But this is the third time we've been able to talk in Geneva, because we did the FLCC roundtable discussion when we rolled the plan out, but we had a days-long session at Hobart with advocates, developers, and municipal leaders. So this is our third crack at Geneva, and thanks again for having us. But that brings us to tonight. We've just started to do these public presentations. We had one early on as the housing study was rolled out, and realized that we were nowhere near ready to start doing that. So as a staff, we got together and started to plan out how this was going to look. And for some reason, they thought Tom and I would be the best voices to put to it. So thanks again for that. And then
Short straws.
and we started to formalize it a little bit better. So the presentation, like Tom had said, is really just the facts. You know, this is what we found. We try to stay away from opinion as much as possible, although Tom and I definitely have some. You might pick up on it as we go along. So, but that's how we got here tonight.
Okay. Counselor Lavin would like to,
I just had a quick, I'm sorry I missed your first presentation at FLCC because I wasn't yet in office and didn't have to go, but I should have. Was there a discussion then, and has there been any more studying since about the effects of the short-term rental market on the availability that you have here measured?
Yeah, simple answer, straightforward, is no, not really. So, something that certainly has our attention, something else that we'll have to delve into.
So I think we've measured here in just the last few months, more than 100 houses now out of the market since you did this study.
Yeah, one of the things that we'll go through later is, you know, if memory serves me correctly, even in the 2020 census, you know, you showed up, the city of Geneva showed up as having 586 vacant dwelling units. And in a county where the availability of properties for sale or rent is less than 4%, that's astounding.
Yeah, I'm not sure
People-
any of us think
people
that's
have-
accurate right now either.
Yeah,
But
people have taken, like you said, housing units off the market because they're available only for short-term rental. Yeah.
And the short-term rental issue and concern is held not only in Geneva.
Right.
We heard it when we last did this presentation in Canandaigua. That was a question that came up pretty quick. When we had the public meetings in South Bristol, that was something that came out. So we've heard it. It almost, I got to be honest with you, I think it's probably going to be a study on itself. And it's something that hopefully, Alyssa, yes, she's taking notes, because tomorrow we have meeting 2 of the ad hoc committee where we are really kind of going through let's get it all out on the table and how are we going to address some of these issues or help municipalities address some of these issues. See, I caught myself. So I'm glad you brought it up again, because it brings it to the forefront and it makes it on our list of
And
things
our
to do.
co-chairman was there and he heard it as well. You know? So, thank you.
Next.
Anything else you want to say about this?
No.
So we hired a company, Urban Partners, to be our, you know, out-of-town expert and really have the time to go through and look at all of these things as part of the housing assessment and where we're going. So if you want to look at the whole assessment, and we'll email the whole presentation to Amy for distribution. She already has it, you know, do it in Adobe Acrobat format, so it's a little smaller. But you can go online and there's a couple different versions of it. If you want to read I forget how many pages, where's the binder, Ryan?
Yeah, if you read really fast, that white binder,
Yeah.
you can borrow it for tonight. I just need it back in the morning.
Or if you like graphics and pictures and things like that, the storybook version is much easier to swallow and quicker to digest. So what we're here to do tonight is to talk about the highlights. You're on.
It's still me. So this one is exactly what it's labeled. It's the total population for the county. We are in sub-market 4. There you go.
And rather than try to study the county as a whole, we made an attempt to divvy it up a little bit in terms of geographic characteristics, and it proved to be more homogeneous by region. Long story short, between the county staff and the consultant, we did a pretty good job of figuring out what were like markets.
Yep, and the population number isn't a huge surprise to anybody in this room. Obviously, the Victor Farmington, Canandaigua area carries the population of the population growth for the rest of the county's population decline, which isn't a shock to anybody.
And the city, however, is still 12,812 in the 2020 census, and it's 11.4% of the county total, so it's not insignificant. Oh yeah, I'm doing this.
You're doing that.
All right. Okay.
And a lot of the talking too, I've noticed. Next one, similar, you just see it as a percentage across the region, using the Rochester metro area as kind of the benchmark. But this is just a percentage representation of the slide that you just saw. So,
Okay. Home ownership. The metro area, it's 67%. Ontario County is the highest in the region. People tend to own their homes. However, the city of Geneva is at 48.4%, according to the census. So, quite a bit different.
City of Geneva is 48.4% of home ownership, you're saying?
48.4% of the people living in homes own their homes, or
Okay.
living in a dwelling unit own their
Okay.
dwelling unit. Yeah.
and that's just big blocks of exactly what Tom just said to you. The difference obviously is what you can see on that 48.4% number versus what the county's sitting at about 73%. So it's significantly low in the city of Geneva. And you've got the renter occupied number too, correct? So renter occupied is actually significantly higher, a little over 41% versus the rest of the county at 27%. And then I should point out also the other vacant number, this gray area over here. Other vacant is kind of a catch-all, but what it really has is those houses or apartments that are unable to be occupied. It's kind of what we consider the low-hanging fruit coming out of this study. Places that we can really attack the issue, maybe getting those houses rehabbed and back out on the market.
So seasonally vacants would be things like lakefront cottages, things of that nature. Conventionally vacant would be a number that is traditionally higher. It's usually around 5%, but that would be your what you would normally expect in a healthy housing market that allowed people to move from one apartment or one house to another, or sell their house, buy another one. All right.
That's a blank slide. This one's you,
Go ahead.
but I can take it because it's an easy one. I can read the information. Median sale price. This is, again, back when we first rolled this out, $235,000 roughly. That number has gone up. Finger Lakes One, I believe, does, I want to say it's almost monthly. They'll release something that'll tell you average home sale price in Ontario, and I think they do Wayne as well. But this is one of those ones where you can feel it on the ground. You can drive around your own town or look on Realtor or Zillow and see what prices are going for. Anecdotally, around the corner from my house in Phelps, house just went for, I think it was close to $300,000 on Ontario Street in Phelps. I bought my house, which is basically a cookie cutter to that house, 8 years ago for $235,000. So if that gives you a real on-the-ground representation of how home prices are doing across the county, that would be a good example.
So one of the reasons we found in our analysis is people aren't building starter homes anymore, or small homes. They're bigger. And while it decreased in the 10 years after 2010, or 2010, it's still over 2,000, almost 2,200 square feet is larger home, is the average home size for new construction. And that pushes the price up. At the same time, one of the reasons obviously is that construction prices have escalated, so it's only the more affluent that can afford a home in the first place, and that's who the builders are building to.
Yeah, that's what the developers told us to their credit, when we met with them at Hobart back over a year ago. This right sizing of houses is more of or as much of a representation of how much it costs to build as what it is trying to get to the right market level. So we suspect that number might drop down a little bit more as we look forward, but the home price isn't going to drop down. It's not linear.
They would love to build starter homes. We heard that over and over again from the builders. Can't afford to do it, and people that can afford new homes want a bigger home.
Yeah, the new build right now, every developer that I talk to, it's 400,000. That's what it's going to have to hit the market for, because that's what they can build it for.
I think somehow we got this a little bit out of order, but we're again talking about the median sale price of homes, and we looked at it countywide, right? It's escalating 38%, but even here in submarket 4, where you might think it's the lowest value in the area, it's actually accelerating at a faster rate than the county average. So what that's telling us is, yeah, we've got this development corridor, it's saturated, and we'll talk about vacancies, rates and things in a minute, but the market's driving people to other areas and escalating prices throughout the markets. All right. You or me? Go ahead.
Me again. So this gets into same information just on the rental side. And you can see where the rental units are. Submarket 2, again, is leading the way on that. You sit in, I believe, second. Yep. So, and that, I'm guessing, is driven by the city of Geneva. But still, that's where our multifamily complexes are and apartments for rent.
And this should be surprising to some people, because we hear it all the time. Oh, there's more apartments in the city of Geneva or the city of Canandaigua. And when our analysis showed, you wouldn't believe how many new apartments especially have been built in Victor and Farmington. All right, and again, this is for those multifamily apartment complexes. Those are the price ranges, and it's not cheap to rent, right? A lot of times, and Alyssa can testify to this, people find out that they'd be paying more per month to rent a place of adequate size than their mortgage on a house would be.
That will show. So one of the parts of this entire study was the survey, right? You know, a little over 1,000 of our residents responded to us, and the amount of money that it cost to rent and or own, so it didn't matter, and what it was forcing families to make choices on was significant. As you can see, where is it? You are roughly $1,250 to rent in this submarket. You get into the Canandaigua, Farmington, Victor area. I mean, that's a hefty price tag on a rental. Again, like I said, we try to stay away from opinion, but I'm pretty sure that everybody's going to hold that same opinion that, wow, $3,300 for a rental unit is pretty significant.
It's cheap. All right, vacancy rates. We alluded to this earlier. A good market equilibrium is about 5%. Somebody brings in a project, a new development, for example, that's usually what their market analysis is based on, trying to get to that 95% to do all the economics work for constructing and operating something. So submarket 1, there are so few, and 3 that, 3, there's so few that there's really no data we could release without basically you being able to figure out which compartment complex that was. Right. But submarket 1, there are a few, there's no vacancies. Submarket 4, even here, you're below equilibrium. So what that tells us is that even if people want to move here or change their apartment. Hey, in a 1-bedroom, I need a 2-bedroom. Hard to find.
Which again, the data supports everything that we were told through the survey as well, and the things that you hear just talking to friends and neighbors, right? What does that mean? We're locked up. There's no place to go. So if you're in an apartment now and you'd like to move to a bigger one, or you want to find a place to
A
buy,
smaller one. Yeah.
it's not possible. And that's right, Tom. If you are looking to downsize, yeah, you can't find that either.
So, not wanting to just concentrate on apartment complexes, we, being the planning department, went back and we pulled out all the data in the real property tax roll and did our own analysis about all apartments and what that told us. So we found 10,356 apartment units, or the second side of a duplex. We counted one, not both of them, things of that nature. A 3-unit house, we counted all 3, just so you know where we were coming through. And we looked at the distribution. And again, people are surprised by the fact that Canandaigua Victor Farmington growth corridor is number 2 in the county in the number of apartment units. So, average year of construction. What an interesting statistic.
It's
right?
his favorite one.
How old is your housing stock? Because again, this looks at when things were built, if you're building new stuff, or if you're stuck with a lot of old inventory in your housing unit. And again, this was just apartments and apartment complex. So, yep, you have the distinction, even though, you got your number 3, you have a substantial number of apartments. You got the oldest housing stock, or apartment housing stock, in the county. The city of Geneva, if it stood alone, the average age of your apartments is 1918. It's slightly less than 1918, actually, which puts you second in all of Ontario County. Only the village of Shortsville has an older apartment housing stock than the city of Geneva. So, interesting, and it correlates to, the census data, who lives in the city and what are your demographic distribution. If you look at, and I'll be happy to send you this, I'm not going to go through it all, but looking at your demographics from the 2020 census, you actually, because of Hobart and William Smith, you have a lot of 20-year-olds, which we don't see. We hemorrhage them in the rest of the county, right? Despite FLCC, Canandaigua, we still send most of our 20-year-olds and we don't recover them the 30-year-olds. You do that. What your demographics tell us is that you have a younger population, and as people grow in wealth and affluency in their 30s and 40s, they end up moving out of the city. Everywhere, most other places in the county, we see exactly the opposite. We see, again, 20 and 30-year-olds leaving, and then as they become more affluent, even some during, some after child raising age, move back into Ontario County, which puts a huge stress on the school districts because they're shrinking, except for Victor, all across the county, their population. But Geneva has holds on to their 20 and 30-year-olds, but interestingly, you have a smaller percentage of school-age children than just about the rest of the county, if you compare the county. So your school district is still shrinking despite the fact that you're holding on to your 20 and 30-year-olds.
Again, with a backdrop of a market that's locked up.
Yep. All right, where are we going? And the last one, we took a look just graphically to kind of portray what the construction trends history was in terms of 25-year periods, basically. A lot of the housing stock was built before 1900. We saw a little decline, some increases in, obviously, the city of Geneva. Between 1900 and the Depression, everything tanked during the Depression and World War II. You know, that kind of surprised me. I would have thought with Sampson you'd see more growth in the city, but that wasn't true, the number of housing units. But then after the Second World War, that 50 to 74 time period, submarket 2 took off, Geneva started to take off, then you created zoning and it stopped.
This is the second favorite slide, so I feel I have to Vanna White it now.
Yeah.
There's your number. And then it kind of flatlines out.
So let's talk, and again, I'll send these statistics to you so you have them. Before 1900, 571 of your apartment units were built. Between 1900 and 1924, 955. Between 25 and 49, 53. After the Second World War, 1950 to 74, 469. 1975 to 1999, 156. Since 2000, 89.
Could that also be attributed to we ran out of space?
Could be, or there's market pressure because you see in a city a lot of times market pressure will cause properties to be redeveloped. So it's not always just a question of vacant land. You sure you don't want to take this from?
Positive. You're doing such a good job, except for that's a blank slide. So population projections. So this is our look ahead, right? What you'll see is the county as a whole looks like a 3.1% growth from now to 2040. The scary part from my Department of Economic Development, that growth is fueled almost entirely by retirees, which makes it pretty tough to market us as a county for large roof employers, because the first question that's asked is, where am I going to get our hourly wage earners to work here?
Well, I'll do it better. I have 20 vacant positions. What's my incentive to spend X million of dollars to expand when I can't even, and need 50 more people when I can't fill my 20 positions?
And my answer to that typically is, it is a difficult problem to solve. The housing shortage and the need to retain and recruit employees in this county is the single biggest hurdle to economic development, period. Of course, there's a rate argument to be made, and that it can't be ignored. However, like I said, if somebody looking, Real Eats is a perfect example. We had 4 different companies looking at Real Eats after it closed, and every one of them, where are we going to get our employees from? It's a tough answer. When we did this first presentation in East Bloomfield, I had a small family farm talk to us about having 5 employees at this family farm in East Bloomfield. They now have 2. Reason why? They didn't have any place for their workers to live in Bloomfield, so their workers were forced to drive by.
They're in that market too where
Yeah.
there's zero availability. Yeah.
So they have to drive by 6 or 8 other places to work at to go work in East Bloomfield at this farm. It just didn't make sense for them. And we see that over and over again when we're battling for talent in this region.
So one thing about this, we didn't try to reinvent the wheel. These are the state of New York pays Cornell to come up with these population projections. We just use them traditionally. We do a little bit better than Cornell projects, but those are the numbers.
And this is the projection for our housing needs. So what we need to do just to keep pace with what the projection population looks like. This is what we would need to do in order to stay there. This doesn't even have a growth conversation part to it. You can go to the next one.
Yep. All right. So what our consultant did was say, okay, to keep pace and meet this population growth forecast, what kind of housing unit construction do we need every 5 years. So 2025, we need 1,493. 2030, another 998. Because the expectation is, of course, some get demolished, some go off the market, but that's the growth need.
So that number there is, well, it's terrifying, right? It's also why we as a staff and as the ad hoc committee and every conversation we've had points to that 1,700 number that we talked about a few slides ago, because that is our only way to make a dent in that number, because if we're behind at that 1,493, well, geez, that 998 number goes up a little bit too, doesn't it? So we have to come up with a plan to do some of the immediate work so we can just stay flat.
And we're, again, looking at our demographics and county-wide, and we're skewed towards the people that are older, right? So 60% of that new construction to meet projected demand has to be oriented to the senior market. And we're going to say more about what that means in a later slide.
And the developers on this one, just as an aside, the developers in the Realtor Association in their white paper, they are very honest. There is no way to build our way out of this. You can't build them fast enough, cheap enough, it won't happen. So you have to get creative.
So then we're going to talk about the survey. And we got 1,098 responses to the survey, mostly from county residents. And Ryan, take it.
See, Tom, you were supposed to stop me earlier when I kept referring to the survey because we had it coming up, but.
I wrote it on your hand, you wiped it off, and what can I tell you?
So if you're looking to purchase a house in Ontario County, where is your ideal location? When we did this presentation to the city of Canandaigua a couple weeks ago, some really interesting stuff. About 55% of the people want to go to the city or town of Canandaigua area, we'll call it. I think it's the next slide or one of the slides coming up. Why haven't you moved yet? Affordability and availability. I've never, I mean, the number is almost identical. I've never seen such a clear representation.
So you have, what, 11% of the county's population, but 16% of the respondents said they wanted to move to the city of Geneva. Like the amenities, looking for opportunities, can't find them.
And a market that is a couple percentage points below what a normal healthy market looks like. So those 16% of the people that would like to live here are probably not going to be able to find a place to live here. And there it is. There's the 55% of the high cost of homes. Why haven't you moved yet? That's the reason why.
Done?
Yes.
This one's still yours.
65 and older, again, Tom and I have hit on this a couple different times. We have to address the need there because the population growth is in that demographic. And why haven't you? There's need with the house that they have, or they haven't been able to find something to downsize to Tom's earlier point. So again, this is just our residents telling us really what the data would suggest to.
So if you're a family and you're looking for a modestly priced existing home, our seniors can't find some place to move out of their bigger homes and make those homes available. Again, that low vacancy rate is an indicator that, you know, people can't find what they're looking for.
Go back to what I told you about my neighbor around the corner. That was an elderly couple, and that was the house in the village of Clifton, or in the village of Phelps that week. So $300,000. There just isn't a place for them to go.
On the previous slide, excuse me,
Sure.
where does like senior apartments or senior living fall in there? I mean, I see the retirement community, but I mean, if senior apartments is an answer, where would that fall? In the 44%?
Meaning what? I'm sorry.
So say you know, if you're trying to come up with solutions, creative solutions, and you say, okay, we want to build some senior apartments.
Again, this is the survey. We were asking them what they wanted. They know they want, if you're over 65 or older, what's your preferred. Well, a lot of them said they hadn't made up their mind, 44% of them.
Sorry, that's the other undetermined.
7% moved to some kind of a retirement community, right? So that would be senior housing. So some of them in that 44%, you know, if it was good, that's probably would be something that they settled for. Right? Yeah. So a lot of them said, right, they wanted to age in place, and it was kind of evenly split between people, you know, could stay home in their existing homes. So about a third of them said, yeah, I'd like to stay here, but it's two-story or the access isn't right, et cetera. And then about 34% of them said, yeah, there's no way to retrofit my split level for senior living. But again, what our data says, you're stuck there.
This goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Your homeowners and renters both will tell you that because of the cost of housing, these other categories are more difficult to spend on.
And this tells you they don't have a lot of disposable income for other things that drive the economy as well.
The jaw dropping, obviously it's 80% of your renters across the county are saying that they're making choices because of the cost of housing. But your homeowners are too. Close to 50% of them are making that same type of choice.
And putting it all together, I'm sorry, go ahead.
These numbers are from the whole county, but do you have it by the sections, those type of breakdowns?
No, because this was the survey, so it was just out to all county residents. So.
Couldn't tell you. However, I would observe if I, thought about these characteristics, right? People generally rent apartments with a base rate plus utilities. So when you look at that and you look at your housing stock is older, you end up having some pretty significant utility bills because they aren't built to be efficient units. That puts a heck of a burden on those people, so that they kind of make sense to me. And it's certainly, if I was putting on my social engineering hat for a minute, I would say, that helps lock people into a cycle of poverty because they're burdened by that. There's not a lot of market, there's not a lot of opportunity. I'm stuck with this high rent, and on top of that, I'm paying all my disposable income and utility bills.
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, but earlier you said that larger employers don't want to set up shop here because they don't know where they're going to find employees, yes?
I said that it was the first question they asked.
Was that question answered to their satisfaction, or any ideas?
So,
on the scope of the survey?
yeah, the advantage that we have in the county is with our colleges, because you can point to them as a place to recruit. And also, when you're looking at the type of recruitment, because we're not alone in the housing issue either, so we have, outside of the county, we have an awful lot of higher learning that we can draw from. And we're not without large roof employers either. You got 3 hospitals, so we can point to the ability to recruit employees and retain employees. But we're all kind of in the same boat as far as that argument, because the region, these numbers, we're not alone here.
However, what I would say is, interestingly, if you look at our job growth over the last 40 or 50 years, and sorry, I don't have a slide for this, but the increase in jobs that are located in Ontario County tracks almost right along with the increase in the number of out-of-county residents that come to Ontario County to work and hold those jobs. So yeah, we've got jobs. We've done a great job of growing the employment market. However, in many cases, the reward is that those jobs are going to people that don't live in Ontario County because they can't afford to live here. All right.
Oh, these are the conclusions.
Yeah.
All of these bullets should come as a shock. The growth, of course, is concentrated in one area, and also the demographic is the 65 and above. We demonstrated that. Need for starter homes. the next one is, next few, need for starter homes, we need for more multifamily, we need for. There is not one single place where you can point and say, if we can fix the senior housing issue, we're great. That's not necessarily the case. We need it across. And that includes, by the way, market housing too. There's a demand there. So we do need to provide for more availability, which will hopefully allow for some affordability. But right now, what the key takeaway is, we're locked up.
You mentioned before the need for creative ideas. Are they out there and who's leading it?
So yeah, there are some. Since this study was released in whatever, September, October last year, the department's phone started ringing. Developers in the residential arena know that the county's serious about this. So what they're asking us now is, and part of why I want to do these, is to match developer to municipality. Because again, like Tom had said, and we have to repeat it because Chris makes us, we're not here to dictate. It's to help you. And county economic development and working with David and Amy, we can help match developers for development, residential development that makes sense to you all and to the city of Geneva. Because that's the only way this is going to work, right? Because what we're talking about is community development. And for someone to just dictate what type of development would hit the city of Geneva, it's just not going to work. So we have to work together to try to find ways to attract developers, work with them early before they spend money to keep their costs down, so the end user's cost will be down. So rehabbing old units, there's different things going on in Canandaigua as far as older buildings that are going to be reused. Gorham Street Apartments is a really good example. That was an old manufacturing facility that's now got a lot of apartments. Phase 2 is supposed to be coming hopefully soon this year. So there are some ways to do this.
And we can help you. We've got a whole staff of 8 different planners. We can work with your staff, help you with more analytics or trying to amend your comp plan, your zoning, wherever you want to go. Again, that's the expertise that we can help with. And, to date, our board's been supportive of that in our committee. So, again, we're here to help.
The macro issues of taxes, it's a high tax region. It affects the cost of construction, what people are paying. Are some of the creative thoughts thinking about regionalization of services to reduce government costs? Is that coming into these discussions?
Great suggestion. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. I don't think we're taking anything off the table.
But it didn't come up in your discussions and in your study, and is it just too tough a subject to think about a county police department that?
We've had an infrastructure meeting on the west side of the county. Ryan's going to organize one on the east side of the county. We're again, looking at this and trying to figure out how we can cooperate better. And, again, what's the county's role going to be? All suggestions are on the table. So bring it up, put it out there. We're glad to hear it. We'll bring it back to our housing committee and our board, and, we'll figure it out.
And right now, some of the solutions, I think you're already working on. Right? I'm very interested to see some of the stuff that David's brought to the table to the city of Geneva over the past few months, because I'm pretty sure that the ad hoc committee would like to steal some of those ideas, because we need to collaborate on this stuff. And I think there's some really cool things that he's working on that, if we can apply that across the county, we can make it work in places outside of the city.
So we're not above stealing your ideas either.
No, we're actually, part of the reason why we're here is hoping to, get just those ideas.
Yep.
But I've lived around the country a lot. I've seen more aggressive creativity in places like St. Johns County, Florida, that consolidated all services countywide to reduce the cost of government, that it has effect on all of these things, but still keeps the services. Who's leading that kind of thinking here?
Well, so the answer to that is we're months out of the study itself.
Yeah.
We've had one ad hoc committee meeting. We haven't even gotten through all the, let's put it on the board to see if we can talk about it. And any of the solutions that we come up with, or any of the ways that we can try to address the issue, is not an overnight solution. So I'm glad that you're bringing it up, because then it'll find its way to the whiteboard, and it's something for us to talk to all of our municipalities about.
The other one is the underuse of the human capital that's here. We talk about who's to hire, but we have kids graduating with, less than adequate high school diplomas that are the potential employers for these places that you're trying to attract. And
So Ryan and I could get on a soapbox and talk about construction and skills and those,
Right.
that is an alternative career path. We've done a lot of work over the years to try to encourage that and set up scholarships and internships for people that want to work with their hands, because I don't know if you're aware of this, about in 2018, Ontario County became the highest ratepayers for the trades of any county in the region. It's not a bad career path. You aren't saddled with a lot of college debt, and you can do something if you really enjoy that you love, and there's
Sure.
nothing wrong with that.
you also, there's nobody screaming that we need 4 school districts with 4 superintendents within a 10-mile square area, because that's the way we've always done it here.
You're right, and that's a fair comparison. If you look back at the history, Ontario County Board of Supervisors, there was one superintendent for all schools back in the 30s and the 40s. In all the years before that, for every school district in the county, there was one guy who was superintendent of schools for Ontario County.
Now, you see, Tom, I bit through my lip on that entire conversation.
I know, Mr. former
Please
Board of
don't.
Education member.
But to your point,
Yep.
it's not, the state isn't blind to that issue either.
No,
And that's
no.
why you have the creation of the Office of Strategic Workforce Development.
Yep.
And that's why my department works closely with county workforce development, so we can address those issues. And some of our districts have gotten pretty creative to do just that. So, and we're hoping that as those start to get piloted, we can, implement them across the entire
And
county.
you did mention FLCC, right?
Of course I did.
Internships? Yeah,
I think Councilor Levin's comments make sense, because the macroeconomics seems to be at the base of all of this. You talk about rising costs of construction and rising costs of rents and rising costs of purchase prices. You can't control that. There isn't any antidote to that, I don't think, that any county can provide. So the conclusions, and if you will, this is a very complex issue, let's face it. Mostly, I don't have any questions for you, I just have these observations. One of the observations I had is that, I think it's submarket 2, Victor, Farmington, Canandaigua, has probably the least amount of farmland in that section of the county. So in other words, it kind of skews the numbers throughout the rest of Ontario County, I'm guessing, because there's just more, if you will, there's more motivation and more incentive to build in those respective places.
I would agree with you with Victor. I would not agree with you with Farmington.
No?
No,
Why-
Farmington has a lot of farmland.
Town of
Okay,
Geneva as well.
but
The north of the Thruway, there's a lot of farmland.
But why is it that those particular areas are where people do want to actually spend the money to build those units and spend that money on rent? Why is it there? Is it the proximity to Rochester and therefore a greater higher paying job market?
Yeah, I think that's a driver,
That's part
of
of
course. But in talking to some of the developers, the other part of it too goes back to the infrastructure talk.
Uh-huh.
There is more readily available infrastructure in some places in the county than not.
Okay.
So that drives it a little bit as well.
Another question I have, I'm sorry to bother you with this, but
No.
affordable housing, that was one of the other things. How is affordable housing paid for? How does it become affordable? If we have an income, how should we say it, there's certain income levels in Ontario County. I don't know how that changes. Wages are wages, and again, It's like construction costs, I'm not sure what anybody can do to raise them. So affordability seems to me to be one of the problems of this so-called housing issue. It's not just number of units, it's actually the affording of them.
You're
And so
exactly
how,
right.
how do you make affordable housing? I'm just, your observations.
I just want everybody to know that I did not script this. So,
Right.
but
Neither
thank
did
you.
I.
It was a great intro because there are things that you can do. Certainly, we can work with the developers. We can do pilot agreements. We can help with grants for infrastructure, things of that nature. But we
Okay.
can also go back and look at our zoning codes. And
Mhm.
you know, one of the for years dirty words in zoning was higher density.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh. So there are ways to. Let's say the obvious first before we go off, which is if you have more units, you can afford those amenities because you're spreading out the cost across more homeowners or more renters.
Right.
So those things go hand in hand. There are ways to do good development, but again, to make it more affordable, you have to be able to have more units and higher density. And again, not use up your vacant land housing stock or not build on prime farmland, right? And you look for opportunities where your infrastructure is or can be expanded. So those all kind of go hand in hand. And you know, what's high density in the town of Gorham or Seneca may, you know, be low density in the city of Geneva, right?
Right.
You know, it's not one size fits all.
Okay.
You know, you have a great, you know, I'm a resident of the town of Gorham for almost 40 years. I grew up in Wayne County, you know. Been to the city of Geneva, you know, visited shopping, whatever, entertainment there for years and years and years. I love the amenities that the city of Geneva provides, and you've done a great job redeveloping your downtown and your lakefront. It is a regional resource. But people naturally, especially if you look at demographics and surveys of younger people, they want to live where there are amenities, right? So you got to look at that and seize your opportunities. The other thing as a planner is I would never, ever, 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 if I said that enough, advocate for doing affordable housing by itself. You integrate it into the community, you find ways to require developers to have a percentage, for example, of lower price units. So part of their profits are offsetting subsidies, if you will, for people of lesser income. So you walk down the street, you can't tell if this house is owned by somebody that it's an affordable house or it's just, you know, somebody that could buy it on its own. And that socially works, is much more sustainable and functional.
Okay.
Again, all of those things have to work together. There's no magic bullet.
Nope.
There's a million different ideas out there, and no solution or group of solution is going to work right for every community.
And some of the affordability, we've touched on a couple different times, especially through my department. One of the things we're trying to do with our tax exempt policy is to reward developers that are looking to do adaptive reuse, because you can do it a little bit cheaper rental, and it also will put it back on the rolls. So you know, those are some of the things that we're trying to do at the county level through the IDA and the EDC. But again, there's not one solution.
I know we sent a lot of this out, and some of it gets into some of those answers, and Ryan and I always buy, so sorry, I'm going to tell the anecdotal story this time.
It was your turn.
But we talk about diversifying the types of housing available. You know, during our roundtable discussions with developers, one of them from Rendically?
Webster.
All right. Came and told us a story about, hey, you know, I designed this 55 plus community of development of patio homes. You know, I figured I'd hit the market. These were people that were empty nesters and they were used to having their own garage, so I'm building attached garages because they don't want a communal parking lot. They like that convenience. But, you know, I'm at this market rate that it's economical for them to afford and not give up that amenity. And so, you know, no impact on the school district. These are going to be empty nesters, et cetera, et cetera. So got his approvals, brought it to market. Found out he sold half of his offering to first-time home buyers in their late 20s and 30s. Because why? He hit the right price point. And again, from a social engineering or a planning point of view, that's what you want. You know, in this market where new single-family homes on a quarter or half an acre lot are going for $300,000, $400,000 or more, you have to give those first-time home buyers a lower starting point to get started because nobody's building those 1,000-square-foot homes anymore.
Yeah. My favorite part about him telling that story too is when he was talking about it, he said it turned out to be a very cool community. He didn't say development.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a nice mix of young professionals and retirees, and the
Which
interaction
is,
is pretty
right?
cool.
In a neighborhood.
You complimented the downtown redo.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back and look 100 years ago, downtown had it had a foundry, his family. They had
Well, everybody walked to
stuff
work.
along the waterfront.
Yeah.
Most of the changes can be traced to state money that came in to help redevelop it.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if the model that we're going after, trying to recapture those industrial days, is the American Can building, which is at 40,000 square feet. 200,000 square feet has sat there since we're making can machines down there before I was a kid. And we continue to go after that. It's got acres of land, could be torn down and redeveloped as a multi-use thing, but it's not going to be done by the city of Geneva on its own without heavy county and state rethinking of the
Just
models of what
saying,
we're doing.
if you guys made that decision, and we're not saying it's a right or it's a wrong decision, you know, we're here to say, if that's your idea and what you want to go after, and you want assistance with that, we'll try to help work on it. Again, it's the city's decision.
I think the state's put a bucket of money together through, and I saw I think it was your last council meeting where you had the pro-housing community resolution. That's where the big dollars are. Not nearly enough, but hey, it's a start.
Yeah.
So
Anything else you want to say about this one?
I think we're in the audience participation part of the evening. So, I think the number one, the strategy is create a county housing staff position or something that looks like that. Hopefully, the start for that is the ad hoc committee. That's the first group of people that's going to get together and try to work through some of this issue.
Because we recognize it's A, complicated, B, while we have planners and economic developers, the housing and all the grants and different programs that are out there, that's a different language, and you really need expertise to understand and navigate that and to dedicate the time necessary to be effective.
I've seen more governmental energy from the county level. In fact, your DSS Doyen and I work together heavily at trying to increase the quality of life for some of the lower parts of what we're dealing with to combat some of these things. And there's much more from the county working together with the city than there is in other facets of what I see in the region here.
We don't control zoning, we don't control land use, right? We have to work with our partners.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the other ones are. I don't have to read them to you. You got them first anyway. So that's Tom's favorite, strategy. Evaluate the existing land use. I guess he likes doing that. And help to, help our municipalities ensure residential growth, da-da-da-da. See, I took it from you.
No,
Next.
that's good, and you know what, it is rewarding to be a professional planner, and I think an economic developer, well, in a county that understands that and is willing to invest in our residents' quality of life. You know, that is what makes us special. How about that one?
That was great. You made that up just standing here, too.
Thank you.
That's
Queued it
good
up.
stuff.
You can expect me to buy you dinner now.
Actually is the expectation. And this one, minimize the negative impacts of vacant and/or dilapidated housing. This is the low-hanging fruit we've been talking about all night. And we have to, our municipalities are gonna have to figure out how they want to address it, and then the county will help you do that.
It's not a simple solution. Some of the things are easy, but they don't come to a lot of numbers. But, trying to, for apartments, for example, how do you convince a apartment owner that he's gonna give up rent for a while you help him make his unit more energy efficient? It's not a simple thing to do, and how we establish, or if we would establish a program and figure out how to do that, it's gonna take some effort.
And by the way, on this strategy and what we're talking about here, one of the exciting things, and it'll make my socks roll up and down as an economic developer, to your earlier point, this is where you can tie workforce development into addressing a housing issue, right?
And I would say an offer, again, not a comment specifically aimed at the city of Geneva. Competition's important. If I own a older unit and I can rent it for $1,500 a month, and my residents' utility bills are $500 a month, well, I got no incentive to do that, especially if there's no competition, somebody else, an offering that's similar price without those high utility bills. So competition in the housing market is important.
If Geneva has taken 130-something houses out of its residential R1 zone for short-term rentals, and Canandaigua is anything close to that, and you look at some of the others along the lake, in the middle of a housing thing, you may be looking at 700 or 800 units that have now been removed from the very thing you're trying to work on.
I live in a town that has frontage on Canandaigua Lake, the town of Gorham. Historically, we have, according to the census, a 35% vacancy rate because we have 1 million second homes and cottages on Canandaigua Lake. The impact, for example, varies from town to town. The city may have a real impact. My town, it's very little impact. It's just people have found a different way to rent their lakefront cottages or second homes, if you will, than going through a realtor. Yeah, it again varies by community.
Yeah, South Bristol, when we had our public meeting in South Bristol, I was in one of the groups with somebody who works in South Bristol, or for the town of South Bristol. It was terrifying what he said. I'm from South Bristol, my family's from South Bristol. In 20 years, we can't live in South Bristol.
South Bristol has 7 or 8 miles of road and can't figure out how to spend all the money that Sands House alone gives them. But that's
Yeah, that part of the market, so contrary to what Ryan said earlier, that part of the market takes care of itself, yeah.
down
So,
the road you have Naples, which is much different.
On the short-term rental piece, as you guys are looking at that, I think that'll be an interesting, so as Councilor Lavins mentioned, we've been watching about 100 short-term rentals. Some are 1 units and, a piece of a house, and some are a whole house. And so I think that's an interesting piece as we talk, because it may not actually be taking them completely off the market. It may actually be sustaining them on the market for the person that's renting just their 1 bedroom.
That's right.
May
And
help
so-
them afford their unit, yeah.
So I think that's a piece of it, is you've got to dive, the short-term rental debate is its own separate. And so I would encourage the county to take some ad hoc look at that.
Somebody got that,
Thank
right?
you.
Please tell me.
A house is a house.
Other questions, comments?
Well, earlier you mentioned housing stock, and you said X number of thousand were needed by the time 2040 rolls around. You're talking about, I presume, single-family houses meant for about 4 people?
No, dwelling units.
Just dwelling units?
Dwelling
right.
units.
Okay,
Yep.
all right,
Yep.
had to ask.
Would been a better way to say that, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, I knew David would want us to jump in.
You didn't talk very much about change in household size. Talk about the impact that has. I think it showed a little bit.
Yeah, it's in there, for the last 40 years, the number of people per dwelling unit has gone down. I think it's like, don't quote me, it's like down to 2.17 or something like that. It was 50 years ago, it was 4, for gosh sakes, right? So, yeah, you do see, even in communities across the county that are losing population, that the number of housing units actually went up because less people are in a house. But, they're at this point, they're like 2.2 down to 2.17. It certainly has decreased. It's not dramatic anymore like it was.
And I think what's an interesting comparison, though, is the size of the housing for the 2.1 is still greater than when it was at 4.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a piece that often doesn't get factored in.
1970, we were building, 1,000 square foot starter homes. And there are a lot of communities in Ontario County, the city of Geneva is not one of them, that, you can't build a single family detached home that's less than 1,200 square feet. They won't give you a permit because it doesn't meet the character of the neighborhood and your zoning.
Earlier, you mentioned establishing a position at the county level, I think, for.
A housing specialist, really,
Housing
yeah.
specialist. I think
Yeah.
that's a good job for you, don't you think? You've got a team of planners.
I have a job, and I wouldn't argue that maybe it starts out there, but it's something that we would support, and that's a decision that's yet to be made, but
Sure.
appreciate the vote of confidence.
Well, the sooner it seems to me the sooner you get there, the sooner you get to that circumstance.
Well,
the more
you can
expeditious.
hear Ryan and I are pretty passionate about this, and one of the reasons we didn't let our Director of Social Services talk is that she's even probably more passionate than any of the rest of us.
I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Chicken or egg question, what comes first, housing or employers?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's
Hand in hand.
Chicken or the egg.
chicken and egg. Yep. Yep.
So right now, I would say the employers are out in the lead. There's more jobs than we can fill right now, for sure. And they're in the lead right now.
Yeah, just as an example in county that, it's outside of data. We do our normal retention and expansion visits throughout the county. Last couple years, we stop in at Lisk, which is pretty close to my house. Was even closer to the house that I grew up in. There are about 50 open positions. Bill, Town of Phelps, 8, probably 8 open residents. So, Lisk isn't going to be able to recruit enough to fill
Locally,
those.
for sure.
Locally, for sure. And you see the same. I just picked Lisk out. There's others too. LSI and Victor, even with the amount of houses over there, they struggle. They've got 15, 20 open positions pretty regularly. So, like Tom said, the employers are a little ahead of the housing part now.
We've had businesses in Ontario County, truthful, that had arrangements with Monroe County Probation to go pick up trainees and bring them every day to work and transport them home to Monroe County because they have vacant positions they can't fill.
And, to that point also, when you look at what our economy and the county is doing and it's not really a complete shift in focus, but we're leaning into a travel and tourism market, right? And generally speaking, those are some of your lower wage earners. We're not the only county that leans into travel and tourism. And if you can't find a place that you can afford, or one at all, why would you leave Livingston County to work in Ontario County when you can live and work in Livingston County? So we need to be able to offer an affordable, adequate home stock to our employees.
And so the last thing I will say is, you know, we talked a lot about apartments and dwelling units, and I will leave you with this perspective. A lot of communities try to zone out or not allow multifamily dwellings. You know, it's your own kids, it's your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren, it's your friends' kids that you're trying to give a place to start. Every community needs starter homes. Every community needs people, you know, places for their own children to grow up and be able to start. And the younger you get them to in a place within your community, the more likely they are to participate as firemen, as Rotary members, or Kiwanis, or the Lions Club, and get involved with the community and be a part of it. So it's not just about affordability and economics, it's really about your community, and that's my parting shot.
Yeah, and you know, to really drive that one home, in that monster of a book over there, there's a page in there somewhere that says if we keep our 20-somethings for 7 years, we usually keep them forever. That's a good number to have. And the first time we rolled this out in East Bloomfield, I'll go back to that story. It was funny. I'm sitting, you know, giving this spiel to 55 people, and you know, somebody said, we don't need anybody else in East Bloomfield. Now this is probably somebody that mailed their last check a long time ago to the bank. They've been in their house for a little while. Sitting right next to them was, you know, neighbor down the road, and they said, well, hey, you know, my daughter's been trying to move back here forever, and she can't find a place. And, you know, the response was, well, we want them here.
Yeah. It is your own kids and
Yeah.
your own grandkids and your family. Yeah, absolutely. It's your providing person. Yes, sir.
Councilman Peach, a lot, just you probably touched on this before, but in your surveys and stuff, how much did the school systems come into play as far as people want to live here as opposed to Victor or Farmington or?
Well, there's no doubt that people look at school districts and performance statistics, and you know, if you look at Farmington, they've had a great deal of growth in even the Victor part of the town of Farmington is in the Victor School District. You know, that's getting built out because people are trying to move there and think Canandaigua was secondary, right? That is the only school district in the county that is still growing. And, you know, whether that's merited or you look at, it's kind of interesting. I live in Marcus Whitman School District, kind of, you know, middle of the road, nobody really works there, but, you know, you look at the graduation rate and the college statistics, they're on a par with Canandaigua. But people will come to the town of Gorham and go, well, I want to live in the Canandaigua School District. Yeah. So, you know, people certainly do look at that, and all those things are important for sure. So again, I'm not going to say the word consolidation, but
I will.
As a former school board member, drives me nuts when you look on a real estate website and you see a number attached to the school district, because where the hell did that number come from? I think, what, Billy, Midlakes is probably somewhere in the middle, right? That's what it's rated. If you go look on Zillow or you look on Realtor.com or whatever, it's somewhere in the middle. Billy and I survived, and here we sit. I think we did all right.
don't tell anybody I graduated from Lions.
So
Right,
I think that the sense of community, nobody's going to buy a house, at least in my, I don't think anybody's going to buy a house without looking at the community. The school district, of course, is going to be part of it, but somebody's going to be able to sell that district. If you're looking in Phelps Clifton, I'll sell you on it. But they're going to look at what's going on in the community too. So
I'm not advocating consolidation. I will just observe that New York State is one of the few states that doesn't organize school districts at the county level.
before Tom gets me in more trouble, somebody else has another question.
Others do it with police and fire as well.
What's that?
Others do it with police and fire as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And you guys, one of my projects a few years ago was assisting in trying to figure out how we consolidated 911
Right.
with the city of Geneva. That's a beautiful example of being
Right.
able to come to agreement and consolidate services.
You're not getting me in less trouble.
Sorry.
It didn't come without pain, but it was very beneficial. Okay.
Well, thank you very
Well,
much.
gentlemen, thank you very much. Tom,
Guys,
Ryan, thank you very much. We appreciate all the support you guys are bringing, and we look forward to future discussions.
Well, communication lines are open. If you need something else, we're here to try to help.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Yeah.
So now I'll look for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or proposed acquisition of securities, or sale of exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof.
I make a motion.
Counselor Brennan, second by Counselor Petropoulos. Clerk, please call the roll. We can hardly hear you.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
said yes.
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Petropoulos?
Yes.
Counselor Morocco? Counselor Lavin?
Yes.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye. Counselor Brennan?
Carried. Thank you. Oh, Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Carried.
I'm looking for a motion to come out of executive session. Counselor Petropoulos, seconded by Counselor Lavin. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Gilat.
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco. Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
We are now back in regular session, and we have one resolution for a property auction bid acceptance presented by our city comptroller.
So today we held a property auction. It was online and in person. I will have the actual number for you at the July 10th council meeting. But basically what I need from council now is the list of properties listed in the resolution for the 12 properties. The highest bid is documented on the resolution, and I'll read the bottom for the official part. Now therefore be it resolved that the Geneva City Council hereby and in due form accepts the above bids, and further resolved upon review and approval of the city attorney, the City of Geneva Comptroller be, and they hereby are authorized to execute a quitclaim deed of the city's interest in the above lots for and in consideration of the corresponding bid amount set forth above, and further resolved the city comptroller be, and they hereby are authorized to accept the bid amount set forth above to pay the full delinquent tax bill for each corresponding parcel, plus any reasonable and necessary costs associated with the sale, and to remit any surplus to the former property owner in accordance with the New York State Real Property Tax Law, Article 11.
And I need a motion. Counselor Gilat, second by Counselor Brennan. Any discussion?
Good
Clerk-
work.
Thank you.
There you go. Clerk, please call the roll.
Agreed.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco. Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Counselor Gilat.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
And now I need a motion for adjournment. I had too many hands raised at once. Counselor Morocco,
They want out of here.
seconded by Counselor Petropoulos. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you very much, staff. We appreciate it. Thank you, Peter.